God did tell me to turn it on. What's there slipping in the other room? What? Oh, you guys were looking. So we'll begin. Today is Thursday, November 10th, 2022. It's just after 5 o'clock, and we will begin our meeting. Could you do roll call, please? Who's doing roll call? Brian in the other room doing roll call, or?
Yeah. So Chair Akins,
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Convery,
Yes.
Commissioner McHatton,
Yes.
and Commissioner Prebor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if you'll stand with me to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you all. Okay. Public communications. We are changing it. When do we need to do that? Right before we get to consent items? Is that when we want to do that change of schedule?
Oh, we can do that, when we get to consent items.
Okay, great. Okay, so public communications. Public communications is the time set aside during the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at that meeting. Brian, do we have any public comments on Zoom?
No, there's not.
Okay, so we will move to the museum representative report. Wendy Barker, Executive Director for the museum, sent me this. Ojai Collects. Ojai Collects is the next exhibition that they're doing. Will open on the third Friday, November 18th, with a reception from 5 to 7. We are featuring collections from 22 local residents. There's a lot of variety from ballet masks to ukuleles and so much in between. Lanterns, Chewbacca, giraffes, tractors, ... This is actually the third time we have done Ojai Collects exhibit, and it is amazing what people have collected in this valley. And they've given me some insight, so it's pretty neat. So that's what's going on with the museum. They just closed their mandala exhibit that they did for 4 weeks, kind of a pop-up exhibit, which was very nicely received and enjoyed. Okay, so consent items. We'll now go to the minutes of the October 13th, 2022 regular meeting. Do we have any changes to the minutes? I do not have any changes. Gina? Nope.
I don't have any.
Jenny? Okay, could one of you move and one of you second, please?
Okay, I move to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. Roll call, please.
Akins,
Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
McHatton,
Yes.
and Prebor.
Yes.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you all. Yep, coming up next. Okay, so the next thing is disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts. For the meeting this week, that would be having to do with the sign that we're going to be reviewing and also having to do with the theater. I think at this time, I just jumped over consent items. So at this time, I'd like to propose a change to the order in what we will be hearing today. Instead of doing item number 2 right first or next, I'd like to do item number 3. So any comments, observations, concerns? Do we need a vote on that or just all in favor?
We need an all in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move to item number 3.
Don't we disclose our visits?
Oh, yeah, we should do that before we go to item number 3. So disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts by the commissioners. Commissioner McCann?
I walked to the arcade and was looking at the signs. Still looking at what you and I talked about like 4 years ago, about all the different heights. So sometime I'd like to discuss that, but that was it.
Okay,
And I visited the theater with you, Brian, and met with the committee who are here for item number now 2.
okay,
I think I've walked through the arcade, but just looking at signs too.
okay, great. I did walk through the arcade actually last Saturday. We had out-of-town guests, and so, and I verified that the sign that was in the window is the sign that we'll be talking about today.
That's the site visit.
So, and then I was with Cindy, we went and over to the theater and got a tour with David, with Carrie, and with Bob, with the owner, the architect, and the contractor. And so they showed us some of the things that we'll be talking about today. And so the two of us went there by invitation of Mara, and she was there with us in our tour that we got there. Did you already confess?
What?
Do you have ex parte,
Well, I've been to the theater and talked to David many times, but not since the last meeting. And the sign is my sign. So,
Jenny, turn your mic on.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's everybody. Okay, then we'll now move to item number 3. Item number 3 is the revision of the previously approved work permit, and we will go tomorrow for a staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair Akins and Commissioners. So yes, this is a request for a revision to the previously approved work permit for the Playhouse Theater on Ojai Avenue. The revisions include facade restoration and repairs, as well as an addition of a service door on the east elevation of the theater building. The applicant submitted a letter on October 20th of this year that included as, there's an attachment E in your packets that includes justification for stucco replacement versus crack and repair and painting as a restorative measure, which was approved by this commission in April of this year. The letter describes how, in the ongoing demolition of the interior construction, evidence of water intrusion through the exterior stucco has been revealed. Signs of leakage through the existing parapet covered with clay roofing tiles has also been discovered. The water intrusion at the parapets is described as evidence of cracks in the facade at the cornice line, and they require new flashings and waterproofing to prevent continued leaking. The existing clay will need to be removed and replaced after the waterproofing is complete, and the clay tiles are proposed to be removed and salvaged to the greatest extent possible and replaced with new matching tiles where possible. That would be due to breakage when being removed. Seismic anchorage of all roof tiles is also proposed as part of the repair. The hollow metal service door and frame is proposed to be on the east wall of the theater, painted Clark white, which is the approved color of the rest of the exterior of the building, with a sand paint finish to match the rest of the wall. The location of the door is toward the south of the building, near the previously approved gate. That's to the trash enclosure. As seen on the attached floor plan, that's attachment F in your packets, the service door leads to the rear of the theater near the stage. Let's see something. The staff report for this evening offered alternatives to the recommendation to consider the request as it is. Staff offered alternatives to the recommendation to accept as is. Staff also offered that the commission may want to request a revised historic resources report focusing on the proposed method of replacement of the existing facade, or request alternative methods of restoring the existing facade. And today, the Community Development Department received a letter from from an architectural historian and a licensed plastering contractor. I'm calling him a plastering contractor. He's licensed and he's a plasterer, so I decided he was a plastering contractor. But anyway, I gave him a title, I don't know. Both of those letters have been made available to you via email before the meeting under blind copy, and then also a hard copy this evening. The letters support the proposed method that is proposed in your packets and written about in the staff report, the method of restoration of the facade of the building. And along with all that, we have the owner, the contractor, and the architect here if you have questions that staff is unable to answer. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. The two documents that we have hard copies of, if somebody in the public wanted to access those, how would they be able to see those?
Well, we have extra copies here this evening, and at this time, that is the way that they would access them. They could also access them by coming to the Community Development Department when they're open between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maura.
Mm-hmm. And they'll also be in the address file as part of the record for this evening.
For a long, long time, I'm sure. Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, any questions for Maura by the commission? No? Okay. Then we'll go to the David and his people, the applicants.
I can certainly answer any questions that anyone has about the letters that have been provided. We did ask for a plastering contractor who has worked on historic buildings to make an assessment and submit a letter. That letter was also discussed and forwarded to the architectural historians post-Hazeltine, who also rendered their judgment and gave some indication of what sections of the historic code were applicable to the removal of deleterious material. You know, in our opinion, the delaminating stucco poses a public hazard and needs to be replaced. I mean, what we discovered was the waterproofing membrane behind the stucco in this ongoing, demolition that we're doing revealed that there is no waterproofing. And there's really no other way except to remove the stucco, provide a new waterproofing shield, and reapply the stucco. Also in the last submission, the wall was supposed to be re-stuccoed with another layer of stucco, which we think would exacerbate the problem by adding more weight to this stucco that we believe is not bonded to the building adequately. So we're kind of stuck between the rock and a hard place. This isn't something that we are excited about doing. It's just more expense and delay to the project, but it is something that in the long run, to maintain this building for the next century, needs to be done.
Okay. Questions by any of the commissioners?
No, not since our meeting.
I have a question. Tell me about the door on the outside in the southeast corner.
So that door is,
Something that we have never heard about before. And
as we have
totally
been
new.
discussing this with people managing the operations of the theater, and, that door is right over the stage. It's on the stage. And in order to provide another way of bringing equipment and pianos and other things onto the stage without being on Ojai Avenue, we've created a kind of double acoustical door seal. That door that's on Signal Street, further down the block near where the gate is for the trash enclosure, is going to be as blind into the wall as we possibly can make it. It's to be painted the same color. We're actually using a sanded paint finish to give it some texture on the outside. I doubt that this door will be used very often, but there are moments when, if the grand piano wants to come in on the stage, there's at least a way to get it, and if there are performances where there's equipment that needs to be brought in and out, at least that's a way to do it without coming in from the front door. The access is a difficult problem in the theater, and I think this is a reasonable way to solve it.
Okay, what would preclude from having that door on the south wall?
On the south wall.
On the,
There's no wall left on the south wall. There's switchgear, there's a fire hydrant, the fire riser for the sprinkler system. There's virtually no south wall.
no location to put
There's,
a wall or
there isn't,
put an entrance in
there
it.
isn't 2 feet of wall left over after
Okay,
the
so it's
electrical
all been
equipment.
used.
It's all been used.
Okay. That was my question on that. Okay, other questions from staff for the applicant? Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you, the three of you, for being here. Appreciate that, and for the time that you gave Cindy and I when we came and,
Happy to do it.
again, to meet with you. I'm also happy that we have the follow-on documents. I was worried about those not being here and not being available, and then us having to request those, and then us having to wait for another HPC hearing. And we may still, but I think that takes us a step towards possibly not. Okay, so Brian, do we have public comment?
No, there's no public comments online.
Okay, so there was a public comment that was submitted to the city that came from Mr. Walker. And is that, where would that public comment be available? Mara?
I have a question for Brian. Are the public comments available online or in our files, or just in, made available to the public or in our files?
We have them in our files, but we do not have a tab on the website yet, but we can add one and post that comment on there, though.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant. Thank you. A tab on the website. So they are not on the website. They are in community development in the address file, which is a public file.
And where, that's somewhere on the website?
No, that is not on the website.
Oh, okay.
Right, that's what it is not, public comments is not on the website.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. I recently talked about it with probably you, Lucas, Brian, or whomever, that there was a time period where we did have a tab where public comment was put on that. Planning Commission still has that in place. They, of course, get a lot more public comment than we do and meet
Right.
twice as much. And then the City Council, I think, has successfully used that for a couple of years now. So to me, it's really helpful if I'm looking at what's going on the Planning Commission to be able to see what the current comments are, and certainly was with the council to be able to see what their comments are. So, and I realize that we rarely have public comments, but it just would be nice when we do to make that available to people.
I'm going to make a note of this to discuss in the staff meeting next week.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will move on then to commissioners' comments, discussion. So yes, Commissioner,
Hello.
yes, Gina
So,
McCann.
obviously, the most important part of the stucco is to make it look like our other historic buildings, like the arcade, like the post office. I'm assuming that's the intention.
Yeah, it is the intention to replace the stucco with the texture and color that was approved at the last meeting.
Right, and yeah, it's
So
just,
exactly the same. I mean, no one will know that it's different.
okay. Yeah, and that's the whole mission revival of with Meet and Requa with the town in the beginning, was building a new town that looked historic from the beginning. And so that's kind of where this needs to be, is having that stucco look historic from the beginning.
We agree.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Convery, or Vice Chair Convery.
When we met last week, I guess it was a week ago, I was under the impression that you probably wouldn't need a historic report, but after looking into the details and looking at the code requirement and the state of California, and I'll back up a little bit, as we all know, Ojai is a designated historic downtown by the state, not locally. So we locally do not have the authority to circumvent the state requirements, which is one of the reasons why we're working to have a local designation so that we can have that authority. We don't have it. So the state actually does require a historic report when you're doing a major repair on the outside, you know. So, and what the requirement is that an application shall be prepared by a historian under contract with the city and in consultation with the Ojai Valley Museum, and shall examine the historical significance and identify the character-defining elements, which you can pull from your existing report. But it needs to assess whether the proposed project will adversely impact the district and the landmark, which, you know, I can't imagine that it will. But I think the goal with the state, as I understood it, is to have a historian decide whether any of it could be repaired without being removed. You know, and a historian approved by the city who does this particular type of restoration work. So I think you have to go through the process, because since we're the state designation, we don't have the power to say, you know, we can waive this or we can move forward. I mean, I understand the process because I did the same thing in my house with the water damage and the stucco before it was landmarked and not part of the district. But at this point, we just don't have the power to do that. It has to be, you have to go through the process. So hopefully, you know, we'll be a local district and we can, you know, revise some of these requirements. But right now, we're just sort of stuck with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Commissioner Prebor.
Well, I agree with that. You know, we have been working really hard to determine the historical district locally, so we can shorten this process, and we just, you know, aren't in a position to do that right now until, you know, that's decided, and it's the state requirement. So I think we have to go with what the state requirement is for, you know, their historic designation until we are able to determine our own local historic district designation, and then we'll be able to refine the process. Mara, is that what we're calling it? Or just, yeah.
Good words.
Revise and refine and, you know, have more control over that. Yeah, I'm just, you know, I feel a little surprised that all this is coming up so late. With the door, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it just seems surprising that it just took so long to discover that, you know, as a theater, you needed a loading door, and I wish it could have been on the south side. That's, you know, that's my thought about that. As far as the stucco, I mean, yeah, I mean, why did it take so long to discover that it was in such bad shape? That's what I'm curious about. Like, wouldn't you guys have known that from, I mean, poor Carrie's been on that corner for, you know, like 3 years.
No, more like
4 years.
Getting close to 9 years now.
Oh my gosh, don't even tell me that, because that means my kids are,
Over 8 years since the
Yeah.
flood.
right.
So,
So I'm
but-
just curious about that.
So, you know, the work we've done so far, we've been peeling away layers, but it wasn't until we were just getting ready to prepare ourselves to scaffold and do the stucco and preparation for removing the marquee. To replace the marquee, we stripped the drywall within the concession area and peeled that back and discovered there's an area there that has no 1x sheathing on the outside. So you could see the actual back of the stucco and the fact that the paper there was gone,
Yeah.
deteriorated. As well as did some exploratory up underneath the soffit on the outside of the entry doors, busted a small piece of the stucco out, and the lath was just totally rusted out. And, yeah, that's indication right there, there's been
Leaks.
water intrusion. And, you know, above the area where you could actually see the stucco, from that part all the way back up and across the whole top of the facade, which is a double wall facade, it's all one by battens up there, which the stucco is on the outside. You can't see through that to see if there's any waterproofing. And so that's why it never occurred to us, we never discovered it until we pulled off this last layer of drywall. We hadn't done a whole lot with the concessionary. We were more focusing on the other. But that, as I saw that and I started really scrutinizing and really going back to little nooks and crannies and other areas where the one by was at and started really poking in there and looking at it, I could see that there's multiple locations where there were, the paper was deteriorating. And so it wasn't until we opened this up in preparation for this that we discovered it. So,
We have so many problems with water for a town with no water, right? No
yeah,
rain.
exactly,
Um,
exactly. And just.
So it's
you know,
crumbling. It's-
Well, the paper, the stucco isn't necessarily crumbling. There are cracks that are growing on the outside that you can see, and we were going to try to patch those. But once we saw that the paper had just totally deteriorated within this wall cavity, and then found the rusted lath in the one area that I busted out, that clearly showed there was a water intrusion. We don't know, and there's really no way to know what's behind all the one by going all the way up into the facade. The facade itself is a double wall. It's about 2 foot in thickness, framed on both sides, stucco wrapped over and back down. And so there's really, it's very difficult to get back up in that little void. But there's no way to tell without removing the stucco itself what the condition of the waterproofing is. And you may open up, say, okay, let's do some exploratory. May open one area, but we don't know about the other area. My feeling is that the primary focus is to protect the integral framing structure of this building. That's really what is historic about this, not the stucco itself. The stucco itself has been patched many times over the years with, over the last century, with various different remodels they've done with the exterior. And that wasn't, I can see now it wasn't done correctly many of those times. But the framing and the sheathing appears to be all in good shape.
And
And we
original.
want, what's that?
And original.
And original.
And
It
hasn't
is
been patched, yeah.
yes, it definitely looks original. And we want to maintain that original structure for another century. And without doing proper waterproofing, doing this the right way, it's not going to last another century.
Thank you. Old buildings.
Yes, old buildings, weather. So I have a couple questions. One is, in preparing for this meeting, did you look at any other areas of the building that might be cause for coming back before the HPC and it then holding you up once again?
Everything else has already been repaired within the major remodels or restoration that we've been doing. That was dramatically associated with the flood. And so the structural integrity required us, that whole east wall,
Mm-hmm.
to remove and replace that wall
Mhm.
or redo that wall. So that's been done. The roof has been redone. The south wall has been redone. We've done everything else that we can.
Okay.
I have one question.
Of course.
So does it go, It's the facade all the way across the restaurant too? So it's from
Yeah.
end to end?
Yes.
It's the whole thing,
Yeah,
okay.
so we would remove from the west side Marche Deli all the way to
way
the
to
corner. And we've already redone the stucco on the east side all the way to that corner, other than the very upper section where we've already gotten your approval to redo that, the scroll work up there, which has been reframed, but it's that column that ties into that. We will take that off as well. And we're planning on taking it from the cornice, that concrete cornice, up and over and back down to the roof, and replace it all. If it will be identical to the way it looked, or the way it was going to look when
The way it
after
should-
we replastered.
should look. What about the other side of Rory's, the west side of the building?
That, we have never done anything with that wall, the west side of Rory's. That's one part of the building we've never touched, we're not going to touch.
Okay.
I can't say that somewhere down the road, there might not be issues, but as a active restaurant now, our intentions are not to touch that. That area does have a pitched roof with an overhang, so it is protected. It's constructed differently. So water intrusion through the stucco isn't nearly as much of an issue because of that overhang.
Okay.
Great, thank you. The door was a new addition. It seems like it should have been something that was known and planned for. I'm just curious. I'm trying to,
There are so many people involved in our team of
Understandably.
people that are designing this building, and we have acousticians, we have people who are theater experts, and some of the folks that were there long after our permitting process turned around and said, you really should be planning for this. We are capable of doing many things in this theater now, live stream, in and out. The idea of, how do we bring cables in? There have been accommodations to make sure that, different kinds of events can be accommodated. They all kind of were jumping up and down about how do we bring large equipment onto the stage without going through the front door. Because it's very, between the lobby and the passageway that comes into the theater, there's a choke point there that's like, 3 feet wide. The piano's not going down that loop.
my college days, I moved several grand pianos, and it's not fun.
It's not fun. Well, and I think there are other things, it's when the musical group comes in and they have their own equipment, how do we, the other part is, this allows for people to offload a truck quickly, not be there for a long time. If there's an easy access onto the stage, the door gets opened up, they can get their truck unloaded, get into the stage and get off the street. So those are all issues that,
So would the base of that door be flush with a sidewalk,
no,
or
it's
is it
above the
somewhat
sidewalk.
raised?
It's above the sidewalk.
And what's do you know what the height is then, from the sidewalk to the bottom of the,
I
that
think
door?
it's about a foot.
Okay,
So there'll have to be,
Truckers bring their own ramps. They bring their own, aluminum ramps to ramp stuff off their truck into the space. It's just, they've got to get onto the stage. Whether it's,
I think everyone understands why it's needed. I think we're curious of why it wasn't in the original,
because it wasn't.
Yeah.
We
Just
just
wasn't.
didn't, we weren't,
with all your consultants.
we've been well, the consultants have come on to this team as the project has evolved.
Mhm.
In the beginning, we were
When I first
mandating
saw
this
it, I
building.
thought of it as a logical exit door. That's what I was thinking. I mean, I understand your use for it, but, in a theater, there's no exit door anyway, right?
Well, there's an exit door that comes out the other side, and there's a path of travel that comes around and through the gated area where the trash storage is. There is a legal,
On which side? The south side,
on the west side of the building,
the west side.
the party wall with the restaurant, all the way close to the stage is a fire exit door. that
Oh, I
comes
see. So
out.
you can go out that way.
Restaurant exits, that's their second means of egress as well. So we all have a second means of egress out that way. So this door has no hardware. This door is, like I said, is flush in the wall. makes every effort to just blind itself out into the wall, including it with some texture, so that you kind of don't, we're trying to, as hard as we can, to make sure that you don't know it's there. But
Is there
we'll
a
use
driveway behind isn't there a driveway behind that, Carrie? Or isn't there a road between the back of the theater and the building next to it?
There's a driveway.
Yeah, there's a driveway.
There's a driveway.
Richard Brender, who lives in the property to the south, he has his parking and driveway right there, on the other side of our yard wall.
Right.
Right, and we're walled off from his property.
Okay, the second question I had, and this came up in our discussion when Cindy and I were there talking with the three of you, was the idea that had been presented by the need for it, similar to what Cindy just said, for a historic resources report that talked about the stucco that you're talking about. And there was discussion going back and forth amongst yourselves even on whether you were wanted to do a historic resources report or not. Did you come to a conclusion on whether you were leaning one way or the other?
I think a historic report may actually be done, irrespective of this issue, for other reasons in the theater.
Yeah.
I understand the process, and I think there may be other issues involved in what is the standard process for the state.
Mhm.
Because my belief is, after we've reviewed this pretty carefully, I mean, we don't have a scaffold up, so normally in a building like this, we'd be hammering the face of the building. We can already see buckles coming out for the face of the building. I mean, not to put my thumb on the scale, this is a seismically unstable place. That stucco, in a seismic event, is going to fall off the face of the building and hurt someone. I don't think
we have an issue with the fact that the work needs to be done. It's
Yeah,
just
I
the
agree.
process.
That it
And the
need-
process is the state
clearly-
requires, it's not a historic resources report, it's a historic structures report, which is done by a historian, well, according to the code, a historian under contract with the city in consultation with the museum. So it
I'm
has
not
to
sure
be
that buildings aren't allowed to be repaired, though, without the historic
It's
structures
for
report, which
this
is one of
type
the reasons
thing,
why we called
It's
in.
code number 4.818,
Right.
and it is a major work permit, which is what this is. So it is a historic structures report. It's sort of an as-built, but by a historic building expert. And it has to be in contract with the city, under these guidelines. This is the state's
Right,
requirement.
now, I understand, but what defines a major work permit? I mean, I think that we're not changing.
Ripping the front off of the theater.
Ripping the front
no.
off the facade of the building and replacing
Well,
it.
I would
everything you're
disagree. I would
doing.
say that replacing material in like kind that's become
Deleterious, yeah.
deleterious and needs to be repaired as a repair protocol is not a major
Actually, I think
construction.
there's a number on a major, like a price, and I'm
Well,
not.
Mara,
Yeah,
you would
there
check,
may
like,
be a
Worth
number.
of $500 is a major
I
work
think
permit.
Yeah, it's a
Let's let
character-defining
Let's
feature.
let
Mara, you want to weigh in on major versus minor?
Well, actually, what was going through my mind, and it was a little bit of a conversation with Lucas, is, who's unable to be here, but that it was maintenance and repair, and they did do due diligence by contacting Post Hazeltine, who we would probably have wanted to talk to, although, the applicant would have to,
Yeah.
I guess, pick the person, and the contract would be through us. And they agreed with the architect that was appropriate. And so I'm a little surprised to hear that it's
Yeah.
required by the state.
It is, but yeah, so I agree. I mean, I was on the same page as Lucas, and you were there at the meeting.
Well,
but-
actually, at the time,
Did you leave?
prior to receiving this,
Mhm.
what staff wanted to give the commission some alternatives because there was concern. And so at the time, that's why I provided you with alternatives. Like, hey, you might want to get a historic resources report. But then after the meeting and hearing what some of the commissioners had to say, and then receiving this letter, that's why my presentation tonight said, you know what, we wanted to give you some alternatives. However, now we do have this, so.
But that meeting was the first time I heard about the project and the first material I saw. I think we got the email like the day before. And the post-Hazeltine is like 2 sentences, it's 2 paragraphs, I'm looking for it. It says,
Yeah.
Here.
it's not very detailed.
No, it's not detailed. It's actually
So, but-
referring specifically to the letter from the
Yeah.
architect.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is, going back from that meeting, looking at what the state requires, understanding the historic structures report, I am now at the conclusion that it is a requirement,
And that is,
which is what you first were
and that is what
proposing,
well, and that's what the Historic Preservation Commission is for.
Yeah.
So we're deferring to you. We just give you the information that we know, and you are the experts. So
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about this architectural historian, the one who did the short letter? Has the city worked with them in the past?
I know these names. I've worked with them before.
You have, okay.
And the city has too on a couple of ours. The firm out in San Ynez are the ones that did the original historic report.
San Buenaventura?
No.
No, they're in Santa Paula.
No, it was, everybody mispronounces their name all the time. So they're in San Ynez. They did the original historic report.
Yeah.
And then with some corrections and different things. Post Hazeltine did the historic report for the landmark that was in the Arbolada, where they were taking out one part and then building another part. So Post Hazeltine did the work on that. And then I think they did the work on one of our other landmarks
So
too.
to
Weren't they-
refer to it as a historic structures report rather than resources, it's not the history of the building, it's this historic structure and how it
Mhm.
fits together. And, the good news is during our meeting, you said that you didn't mind doing that report, that you wanted to do that. So I think we're all on the same page, which is great. And, because we don't have the local designation, we don't really have a lot of power. And I think that's what Lucas kind of struggles with, because he has to balance making recommendations based on the historic designation of the state, rather than a local designation.
Well,
So-
we don't have a local
Yeah, we don't have it.
designation,
If
so-
we had it, it would be a
Right, right.
different story. But I think that's a bit
And if the
of a
local
struggle.
designation were to have streamlined, I mean, that's something that is so far, removed right now.
Yeah.
We have no
Yeah.
idea what's going to happen, so
Right.
we can't say that is even the case.
No.
Right.
We don't know
No,
if there would
it's
be
not.
any
We're-
different
we've got what
requirements.
we've
Right. So
got.
we just need to
Right.
follow what the state,
We do need to follow it. It is a state, it's a,
Resource, yeah, historical resource.
Yeah.
sorry?
A state historical resource.
Right.
Yes,
And so-
contributing.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner McCann, did you have a comment?
I was just wondering if Pamela came in person? Did she observe the stucco, or did
No,
she?
we shared photographs with her. We shared the interior and exterior photographs, and she had my letter.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to answer one of the questions that you put forth, because I've had a lot of people ask me when we talk about the fact that we did become a state historic district, something that took place without any of us knowing for 2.5 years or asking our permission or anyone else's permission. They're saying, well, what was the impact of that? And I will give you an example that we had a building that was on the western part of downtown. Those people wanted to raise their antennas by, 6 feet or something and also raise the wall around their antennas. Prior to being a state historic district, or then in talking with Lucas in his reviewing it, he wouldn't have required for them to do a historic resources report, but because we are now a historic resources report, they were required to do a historic resources report
because we're now a state.
because we're now a state.
Yeah.
A state historic resource. So, we're right in that kind of in-between area where three in-betweens. We had nothing, then we became a state historic district, and now we're trying to do a local historic district.
And if this were deemed a repair operation, would that same standard still apply?
It's a major work permit, so yes. It's over the price of,
Is redoing a roof that is
That's a
leaking,
major work
is
permit.
that a repair or a
It-
major work permit?
Is redoing is it a question?
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, because
Redoing a
that's a
roof would-
significant,
that would be
that's
major,
also
right?
significant
yeah.
expense.
I would think that that
Well,
would.
but I would
be-
include it in your historic structures report, if that's what you're gonna do.
But you already did the roof.
Well,
you
no,
said.
But you did it.
I'm just, well, what
Yeah,
I'm
Carrie's just
asking-
trying to understand what's
Oh,
what.
oh.
So-
Because this is a waterproofing issue,
Right.
just like,
So the front facade, I believe, and I don't have my municipal code with me, but I believe the front facade of the Playhouse is a designating, or what is it, a feature of
A character
the
defining.
character defining feature, thank you, of the landmark.
Yeah, it is.
And therefore, I believe, because of that, I believe it would fall into a major
Yeah.
work permit.
And the roof is not.
The roof is, no, I mean, I can't see the roof.
Right.
It's not
Right,
part of a
Yeah.
character defining feature.
right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and the roof did not come before us. That was deemed, I think, as a replacement.
Maintenance and repair,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
maintenance
don't
and
recall,
repair,
I mean,
and
it didn't come
We
before
cut a
HPC.
lot of flack.
How many
for-
times has the roof been replaced over the years? Probably two.
Maybe never again.
Maybe
done
never
such-
again.
Done
Not
such
if,
a,
not if
Well,
Carrie's
done
done it.
such a great
Oh, oh,
Not
job.
if Carrie's
yeah.
done it.
Yes,
Um,
Carrie and everybody involved.
So we didn't have any, there was no reason for the roof to come before
That's correct.
us because it doesn't have anything to do. Okay, I understand that, yeah, okay.
Okay, so, welcome to Ojai. Okay, so comments amongst ourselves. Again, we come back to that conversation on if there was a historic structures report. Now it sounds like that is acceptable. Did you, again, David's kind of in the back. He's the one I would ask initially, but it sounds like there was a historic resources or historic structure report that you planned to do.
I think that the purpose of that historic report, yeah, sure.
Yes, thank you. I'm just trying to understand what your intentions are.
You know, there are other implications in the maintenance and operations of the building where the building may wind up getting tax status that's different than it currently has based upon a historic structures report. And for that reason, there was anticipation that we would do that so that there could be other filings that were made.
Mills Act or historic tax
Mills Act.
credits? Are you doing historic tax credits on
We
the
don't know,
repairs?
I think that's dependent upon,
Oh, that's
what-
something that you apply for before the construction or during the,
I understand. I mean, that
You
there's
know,
conversations that are going on about whether that, if the truth be known, if this were not possible, we wouldn't do a historic structures report.
yeah.
I mean, the reason we're bringing this piece to you is not about changing the character of the resource. It's about taking down something that needs to be replaced. And, I mean, sad to say, at the end of the day, no matter how many historic structures reports are done, this will be done.
Yeah,
Right.
it will be, but it
Yeah,
still has to
I-
go through the process.
sound-
We
it
all
sounds like-
agree with that.
Yeah,
you
we
know?
all agree. We all agree with that.
I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
quickly this can be expedited because it has to go, now it will go through this, but, the longer this sits there.
Well, isn't
Yeah.
this your consultant right here, this post Hazeltine?
But Jenny, they have to,
No, it won't be our consultant who does the historic report. It'll
So-
be engaged
Oh,
by
but we'll
the city
use
of
this,
Ojai.
this group.
No,
No.
not,
No,
well,
they'll-
not
No,
necessarily,
not
not
necessarily.
necessarily.
Okay.
So a consultant, you know what, it's possible that there's bids, there's contracts, or a contract. The whole process will take time.
And this is something that you handle.
It goes through.
It goes through you.
the
This
city,
is not
yes.
something that this
Correct.
team
here's
handles.
the
You do it.
code.
So
Jenny,
the applicant-
requirements spelled
No,
out.
I know the code
Oh, I-
requirements. I'm
The
just
app- the
wondering
applicant-
if, like.
The applicant pays the
work-
bill,
Yeah,
and the consultant goes through the city.
Yes,
yeah.
And what's your anticipation of how much time this would take?
okay, I think it's,
Because this will delay the project.
This will
Significantly.
this will significantly delay the project. I mean, it'll be. It's got to take a couple of months because
I think a couple of months would be optimistic.
it's possible that a couple of months is optimistic.
Yeah,
And-
I mean,
and
it's
it's the
not welcome
holidays.
to Ojai, it's welcome to State of California Historic Designation. If it was welcome to Ojai, we would have the ability to be flexible. But
Yeah,
It's not welcome to
I
Ojai.
think this is a perfect example of why we are working so hard to designate the historic district in the downtown area. Because then we would have, I mean, like Mara said, we're not there, and it should possibly not be part of the discussion because it's so far down the road. Like, we're speaking in hypotheticals, but hypothetically, if this project that we've been working on for so long is passed, then, you know, this discussion would be different. But you guys are in it now, so.
It's also, it may be different. It may not be
It may be different.
It may be different. And I
So,
do want
you
to
know.
say that I think that staff came to the conclusion that it was, I don't know if it's called emergency, but maintenance and repair, and that we had the letter, which we were surprised but very pleased to get. And so it's just a bit of a surprise, but not that it's not accurate, I'm not saying that at all. And so if that is the commission's direction, then that's what we will do, or that's what they will decide. And it's
So
based on a
I just want to be
state
sure I
requirement.
understand. Under an emergency situation, would you be allowed to repair the building?
You know what, I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, and well, we will be looking into it with Post Hazeltine as well, to verify, you know, what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Carrie, do you believe that it's an emergency, that it's a danger for people walking down that street right now?
If, not in normal circumstances, if there was an earthquake, which can happen at any
My
time,
house would be down.
anywhere, it's a real possibility that some of that stucco could.
Yeah, of
drift
course.
away.
Of course.
That is one of our concerns.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Carrie, can you go to the
Yeah.
podium if you're going to,
Yeah.
if there's going to be conversation?
That is one of our concerns,
Yeah.
if there was an earthquake.
If there was an,
And
okay.
that's, you know, here in Southern California, regardless of whether there's historically been an earthquake that's done significant damage here in Ojai, it's still the guidelines that we have to go by.
We've
It could
had
happen.
287 earthquakes in the past year based in Miners Oaks.
Yeah.
Just because I have some buildings in Miners Oaks that I'm dealing with. And there's a crack across the whole floor, 287. They're based in Miners Oaks. So, you know, we get those earthquakes all the time.
Right,
I mean, you know, you can see where my house is cracking
Right.
and I can feel it shaking and that sort of thing. So my question is just that, yes, in an extreme situation like that, there would be a lot of damage in our town if we had a major earthquake.
Right.
But do you feel that people walking down that street are safe, down that part of the sidewalk are safe? Or would you
I'm going to answer this.
propose to,
Yes.
you know, close the sidewalk?
Unequivocally, yes. I know that the stucco is delaminating. I'm worried that the lathing that's behind that stucco is detached from the building.
So
I don't want
are
to
the
bet, I don't
people
want to bet on
walking,
288.
are the people walking on that sidewalk safe? Or are you proposing that we close the sidewalk?
Well, that's the next question. We'd have to
Close
close
it
the
down?
sidewalk. Right.
Yeah,
I think if this were just for, now that we've identified a seismic hazard,
yeah.
I mean, there's going to be no choice.
So that's gonna, you know, affect,
Well, but Jenny, that's all determined by the historic structures report. You know, this is speculation, this conversation.
yeah, I know, I'm just saying that, I mean, I don't know. I would ask Mara, like, who determines that we're closing down the sidewalk? Because, I mean, I have a business across the street and it's, how do you determine that?
I don't know the real answer to that question,
Yeah.
or, you know, the accurate answer to that
Yeah.
question. I'm sure that a professional would have to determine that there
Right.
was,
Then
that there was a reason to close down the
Then I'd say,
street.
if no one has the answer to all these questions,
I think,
then
I
some,
think that's me. I'm a licensed architect in the state of California,
think
and
that-
there will be there will be a letter that goes to my client. It will go to the city of Ojai, and it will identify this as a hazardous condition, and that we're not going to take
supposed
any liability for what might happen in the event of an earthquake.
Probably the first step is to follow this code requesting the historic structures report per the requirements and move on from there. I think that's where we
yeah,
are.
I don't understand why there's so much discussion about it. It seems very clear. You get the report, we all agree that the work needs to be done. No one wants an earthquake to happen, obviously, because, you know, so much would be damaged. you know, we obviously don't want anyone, that people are lined up on that street out, and there's 100 people in front of Rory's every night. You know, I mean, if that's an issue, then yeah, I'm sure that Mara and, you know, city people, I don't know how that happens, but, you know, the work needs to be done. Carrie was very, very clear about that. I don't know what to say about the door. I think it's really unfortunate and curious that that's so late in the game. But, you know, I think with the facade I agree. I mean, Carrie was very clear in his description that that work needs to be done.
David, did you want to come up? Seemed like, okay.
I don't think it will make a difference if I come up there.
Well, it's just an understanding, I guess. Okay, so the question I have then, so it seems like we have increased from the stucco, from it becoming disengaged to the potential liabilities. So I'm wondering if there's going to be some kind of a report, historic structures report, that initially it sounded like it would only be addressing the stucco itself and repairing it, or whatever the correct word is for that. But now it seems like we are looking at the whole issue of the safety of what's there, and rather than just addressing the one part that we were talking about today, we weren't talking about seismic. Is that something that we should do, or something that should be done altogether with the two steps of that project? I'm just trying to
I guess I'm
understand.
not clear as to,
So you came here to talk about the stucco
right.
and the part up top,
Mhm.
and what was needed to basically replace that, repair that, whatever the term is, okay? And I think that's why you came to us, looking for some guidance for getting that work done,
Correct.
okay? But now we're talking, so that's step one. But that doesn't seem like the whole problem, based on what you're identifying to us as being the potential.
as being a
This
daily-
is all the same work, exactly the same
Yeah.
work. Because of the lack of waterproofing, water intrusion has happened. The lath that's there is rusting. It's rusting the nails, it's rusting the lath, which is disengaging it from the structure itself. And in some areas that we've already identified, but there's a great deal we have not identified, that we can't say what the condition is. And there's no real good way.
Well, how will that happen? How,
Historic structures report.
Because
then that's,
because stucco itself is
no, I
not-
mean, you're saying there's still a whole part of it that hasn't been examined yet.
Well, you
And-
can't see it until you take the stucco off.
So,
But I think our notion is, not a notion, that we've seen enough of the membrane that's gone to realize that this 100-year-old building has probably deteriorated equally across its facade. There's no reason to think that it's a different condition exists left and right from the 12-foot chunk of wall that we've now
Right,
exposed.
so it's the whole, so
It's the entire
Carrie's
upper
point is that
facade.
he's just saying, from what he's seen, he's assuming it's across the whole
Yes.
facade.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's clear.
okay, so
That's clear, yes.
I feel kind of funny being the chair of the board and raising my hand, but just trying to be polite. So Carrie, what you're telling me is you came here with asking for permission to go ahead with something that's going to address all of the different things that we've talked about.
Yes,
Not
correct.
only the poor stucco that needs repair or replacement, all of that, but also the other items that may be anticipated or even may be found when you're taking that stucco off. So you're coming before us to do all of that,
That's correct.
rather than two steps, which I misinterpreted, and I
I guess I'm
apologize for that.
unclear about what the two steps might be.
Well, we're not. Now I understand it's just one.
Let me explain what the process would be. What we were planning on removing is the stucco, the lath that the stucco is attached to, and the waterproofing, what's left of it, if there's any there, down to the raw framing. That was the full intent. That's the only way you can repair or replace the stucco. We remove all that, you put back new waterproofing, re-lath it, and new plaster.
So it's all the way.
New
down.
stucco back over that, which takes care of the, both the waterproofing as well as the fastening of that stucco
Right.
to the structure. That's what's holding it on.
Right.
It's all encompassed into the same procedure.
Right, I think you'll notice in my letter, that there may be some degree of repair that has to be done to the sheathing that's on the building. I would imagine that
Yeah.
there's been water intrusion.
And the
And that
little
sheathing
shed
is
roof,
rotted.
the tile, the little 4 tile,
Mhm.
I call it a shed roof because it looks like a
Yeah.
shed, but, and then any dry rot that's inside, you know, as
Right.
you said, you don't know what you're gonna get till you open it up.
Right.
Yeah, for
examining
sure.
from the inside, everything we can see, I see very little significant areas that look like there's rot.
Oh, good.
You know, we did
Right.
come across a little bit of termite damage, a little bit in a lower area. There were 2 or 3 boards which we placed on the inside or strengthened those up. But I do not see anything that's telling me we have major issues right now.
That's
But I
good.
can't guarantee
Okay,
we're not
okay.
gonna uncover
That's,
anything.
that's helpful
Good.
that you said that. Thank you.
I think it's just a question of following the requirement that, you know, we're just kind of all stuck with.
I will say this, the one area with the scroll work that we already have reframed,
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of an isolated section. That, when we were redoing the roof from the back side, we opened that up to redo that roof. That area was very obvious. You couldn't see it from any place else. There was no framing left. It was totally
Totally
rotted.
rotted.
The stucco was the only thing that holding that up. I don't see that same condition happening anywhere else that I can see.
You're right. So you
So,
see the framing.
But that's what will happen if we do get a great deal of water intrusion. The reason that area had an issue is right where the riser for Edison was going through the stucco. And that's where it was
Oh.
getting water in there and never seen and trapped. And it caused all that wood just to totally dissolve, deteriorate. And that's what will happen over the years if there's continued water intrusion.
Okay, so let me get to my next question. I used to work for an AEC firm, so we had lots of projects, some of which had parallel paths, some of which had serial paths. Okay, so if we did require a historic structures report, is there work that could continue to be done while we're waiting for that historical structures report? Or is it serial in nature rather than parallel in nature?
Work that can happen on
And
the
that may be a
interior.
question to you. So.
Yeah, no, there'll be work
Other work.
continuing on the interior of the theater. I mean, the roof.
So work will not be stopped.
But
just gonna keep-
anything abutted up to that front facade, I will not allow I won't be involved with closing any of it, insulating it, doing any drywall, any electrical work, anything in that area until
That's right.
we're sure it's dried in.
Right.
It's gonna stop that whole northern section of the building from having any work done.
Right, there was an impetus, I mean, this stopped. There was an impetus to try to have this work done and have the marquee up by Thanksgiving. Obviously, when this came up, that stopped, but,
Yeah.
you know, there's $100,000 worth of material sitting in warehouses, ready to come to this job site. And it's not gonna come. And I think that it's gonna pose an unfortunate burden on David.
Yeah,
You know?
we tracked all those steps all the way through our projects also,
And
so.
once we hit, after the first of the year, I'm gonna be very reluctant to tear stucco out while we're in our
Rainy season.
supposed rainy season.
I was, that-
Regardless, as soon as I tear it off, it's gonna rain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If we want rain,
Yes.
let me tear it off, but I'd rather do it sooner than later.
yeah, again, I'm just looking at the paths forward
Yeah,
and again, what's serial and what's parallel.
yeah.
Okay,
So I have a
yes,
I
Commissioner
have a
Pribor.
question for Carrie about, so once you begin that, the replacement of that facade, what's your projected, like, how long does that take?
Probably.
Since you've been there
start
9
to
years already.
finish, I'm looking at between 6 weeks and 2 months.
Oh, okay.
We want to get it done quickly.
To redo the whole facade
Yes.
and the electrical and everything in there, okay.
But once the stucco's been removed and a scratch coat is put up, it could rain, for all we care. It only helps the stucco to get the base coats of the stucco wet. But by that time,
So
we've got a waterproof.
how long, so for that time period, the sidewalk would be closed for sure?
The sidewalk will not be closed. We're putting in walk-through scaffolding so that the sidewalk will be
Oh,
open
okay.
the full time.
Okay,
No parking spaces will be closed off. That's all been worked out. I've already got my Caltrans permit. The longer we delay this, then my Caltrans permit will expire. I'll have to go back through that process with Caltrans again, if it gets delayed too far. But, that's,
So let me ask another question. So I look at this as one request, but two items in there. So we have the front facade, the front area, and then we have the door. We can separate those into two motions if we want, correct?
You may.
Okay, so it's not an all or everything. We can agree to one while giving guidance on the other if we want.
If that's what the commission wishes, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I have a
Trying to
question.
get something done.
So,
Yes.
assuming that we end up following getting that historic resources report or structures report, can we do what we did, I think it was with the El Roblar, to get them on our next agenda? And if the agenda, if our next meeting is passed, can we get them as quickly back in front of us as we can?
You're talking about the theater and holding a special meeting like we did before?
Mm-hmm.
Funny we should say special meeting.
Just not holding this off as any longer than we absolutely have to.
Yeah, again, it is, I've learned a lot in the last couple of months. It is something that we would have to work out with staff, community development staff, with Mara and with Lucas, to see how it could work for us. We were able to get the El Roblar in fairly quick, I think, because everybody was waiting for a specific event to take place, and we had said once we got that, then we would move forward, and everybody knew that, so we were kind of, tapping spots as we went. So I think it was a little easier to call one and get one right away. So yes, we could ask for it to be a priority and then go to Lucas and Mara and see how we can fit that in. But it is a team effort rather than us individually making that request.
Okay.
I have another question, just for Cindy, so is the door on the side, does that require the same report? Is it connected? No, it's
No.
separate. Okay, so the door can go ahead.
I think what Brian,
the front-
separating it is correct.
Separating is what
That's
we could do,
correct.
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So if we did separate it, if we did give the okay to put a door on the side, is that a project that you could move forward on? Or it doesn't need to wait for the front, correct?
Need to wait for the front.
Okay, just,
And that doesn't need to close the sidewalk, or that doesn't need
No,
the parking, that's,
just the door.
Well,
The
yeah,
sidewalk might
just
be
a door, but
closed
you're
for,
cutting
it. You know, you got-
for a day while we do some work.
Yeah.
But I've already got an encroachment permit to close the sidewalk whenever I need to.
oh, you do, okay. Okay.
That's
There you- hey.
That's city.
I wonder when that happens.
Yeah, that's
city
power,
property.
that's
So-
power.
That's the easy side. The front is with Caltrans. That's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Because the
The
side is
highway.
on Signal Street and the front is on Ojai
It's on
Avenue.
Ojai Avenue.
Okay,
Yes.
so that is different.
It took me a couple months to get to procure the Caltrans permit.
Why is that? Because
Because it's Caltrans.
because it's Caltrans.
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
And for those who might be watching, it was because of Caltrans that they couldn't get the post office painted in under 3 years, and that's per Tony Thatcher. Just putting that rumor. Carrie knows what I'm talking about, I'm sure. Okay.
We're at the mercy of the state.
Are you ready for a motion?
I am ready. Have you expressed your concerns, or you got your questions
I think
answered?
the only thing that we will probably do is that under what we think is an emergency issue, whether or not this
So you'll look
particular
into that?
report can be circumvented. Yes, we will look into that for sure.
I don't know the answer to that, so.
I don't either.
Okay.
So that, I think we are clear. If this is going to have to go back to have a historic structures report, typically, what is that, what all is involved? You got the report, you have to meet with the state, do you have to, how does the state get involved? What's that whole
No,
process?
well, can I answer that, Maura? Do you
Please.
want to go? It's through the city. It's a requirement from the state that the city has to work with you through the historian, a historian under contract with the city. So you don't have to, it's not like Caltrans Vibe is not involved in this, so that's a good thing. And I think you've got your post-Hazeltine group. It sounds like they're gonna be a fit. I'm not gonna say that they are, because I'm not
It's not.
staff, but, you know, the possibility that they would be a fit would be helpful, I would imagine. You know, so hopefully the process will be pretty streamlined, and they can look, you know, do a structures report to talk about the character defining details and how they need to be restored and, you know, the way that the report deems, which I hope agrees with exactly what you want to do, you know?
And is that consultant hired by, is the procurement of that consultant by public bid?
But, yeah.
You know what? Staff is going to have to look into all the details and the process of contracting with the historian. It is the city that contracts with them, and it's
Right.
the applicant that pays for it. And as far as going out to bid, I need to look into that and talk to you about it next week.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more question of
Of
Carrie?
course.
I'm just like worried about someone getting killed walking down that street. So when you put up that scaffolding where you walk under it, is that safe
Yes.
if something fell?
Yes, it has plywood over the top of the walkway. It'll have tarps, the full outside to protect the street and parked cars. So yes,
Okay, okay.
it meets both.
I just am expecting to walk out of my shop and see.
It all is
something
being done
horrible.
professionally by roll scaffolding, and it's all with Caltrans guidelines.
Okay,
But our request is gonna be that scaffold goes up next week. And that scaffolds remain up until this work is done.
Yeah, see what
well, I don't know
happens.
how that,
Right now, the scaffolding is scheduled to go up on the 21st, which we were waiting for the 10-day appeal period after tonight's meeting, and that was gonna go up, which was Thanksgiving week.
that's Thanksgiving week. Yeah, I mean, that's a really busy,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that had already been vetted by Lucas,
Mhm.
you know, so he was aware of it. I
Yeah.
asked him that, you know, 2-3 weeks ago.
Well, you're putting up multiple tiers of
Yeah,
scaffolding, at least. We're gonna put a sidewalk shed up,
yeah,
you know, that's in front of the building. Rory's is not gonna be very happy.
Rory's is not gonna be pleased.
Okay, one other question actually to our commissioners. So, and Commissioner McCann brought it up, and we have a history of doing this. So would we, if we get all this and get where we have just had an HPC meeting, or we still have some number of weeks before our next HPC meeting would normally take place, are we okay with seeing if we could do a special HPC meeting in order to move this along? Are we as commissioners, is that something that we would support?
Yes,
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
I
so,
think,
yes.
so you have that from, so, you know, we're trying to look for paths. I understand that you're still looking into the emergency hearing. Again, we haven't had that before, so we'll leave that to staff to let us know what's going on that. But we are ready to do whatever we can to hurry this along. And because I think everybody wants to see the theater with movies and popcorn.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Exactly,
right.
David.
I saw that on a marquee
Saw
someplace.
that on the marquee. Thank you, Randy Haney. I just want to say that, yeah, I see like three things going on. The door is one issue, which I think we can, keep separate, and obviously it's necessary. The redoing of the structure, and then this thing that keeps coming up about that it's a true emergency, and that would go through the city, I suppose. I mean,
This is something that we'll discuss and research, look into next week. Well, it depends on how big of an emergency it is as far as the applicant is concerned and looking into it immediately, but we will talk on Monday. You can talk to me on Monday.
but in general, Mara, for concern of an unsafe structure in the city, we would go to you. So anyone would go to you.
I'm thinking it would probably be Public Works, but it's really appropriate for me to say that it's something I'll look into.
Right, and it would be,
And
but it would be
Because
through,
it's Caltrans
staff.
property, they would probably then defer to Caltrans.
Exactly.
well,
Yeah,
right.
it's Caltrans frontage. So
The sidewalk is
it's
owned by
something
Caltrans.
that can be looked into or will be looked into as soon as
Yeah,
possible, but it's kind of out of the purview of the HPC.
I'm interested, yeah, it's out of our purview, but I'm just curious about how that works, because if Caltrans then has to determine that it's an unsafe structure, that's another leg in the journey.
Okay.
And we don't know that yet. So, but we cannot help you on that. But I think
But popcorn's
We
getting
can-
cold.
we can go ahead with, we can do we then now talk about the door? Do we
No, we
vote,
can,
or where?
we can make a
No, we
motion.
can, we can,
Make
we
a
can make a
motion.
motion. I'd like to start with the door, to entertain a motion on the door first, and then we can go to the other item.
So I'd like to make a motion that we separate the door construction from the stucco construction, and the motion would be that we allow the work on the door to proceed.
I second that.
Roll call.
Akins,
I was looking at Mara and this voice came out. Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
McHatton,
Yes.
and Praybor.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Check that.
So, okay, so I guess we'll make a motion on what to do as far as the stucco. We'll entertain a motion, see if there's a second, and then have a discussion on that motion and see if there are any alternatives that we want to work towards. So I will entertain a motion on the stucco portion, the front portion of the building.
So I'd like to make the motion that the applicant prepares a historic structures report prepared by a historian under contract with the city in consultation with the Ojai Valley Museum per code 4-818 and in keeping with the state historic requirements, and then move forward on that process to the next step.
Okay, a second?
I second that.
Okay.
That's,
Any discussion on that item?
I don't think you have discussion after you make a motion.
and just to, can I just ask, just to clarify with
Because we're
Mara,
separating
we can't help in any way
Second, a
with
different motion.
an emergency situation.
There's nothing to be discussed here about an
Okay.
emergency situation.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, I just said, I just wanted to clarify with Mara that we as a group cannot help them in any way with an emergency situation. And she said, no, we cannot.
There's nothing to be discussed. There's nothing been determined where we have documentation. It's not something that is appropriate to discuss with the commission tonight.
Yeah, so we'll get more.
I just wanted to clarify that.
We'll get more information. We'll have that sent out to us through Mara, and then we can figure out where we go from there. Okay, so we have a first and a second. Mara,
Brian?
roll call.
Akins,
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
McHatton,
Yes.
and Prebor.
Yes.
Okay. So we will wait for an update and, oh, that's right, it's, Veterans Day tomorrow.
Oh. Everything's closed?
I don't know, city's closed.
It's a holiday.
City Hall is closed tomorrow. It's a national holiday.
Okay, so I'd appreciate it if you can keep us informed on the steps and on information that you find out. For that to go to the whole commission, that should go through Mara, and then she will send it to us. And, you know, we're through in the same Brown Act type thing. And because there's 4 of us, there's only 2 of us. Even when we have 5, there's still only 2 of us that can meet, which is why Cindy and I were the only ones at the tour that you gave us. But we are interested in finding out and keep being kept up to date on the information that you find out. And again, are willing to work towards a special meeting to try to keep this moving along.
Yeah.
I think that's all we can do. Okay?
What is it that immediately you need from us?
We need to talk on Monday. Okay,
Okay,
thanks. I'll be in at
Okay.
7 a.m. Give me a call.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
You mean we can call you at 7 a.m.?
Mara, we've just given you.
Don't give that
we-
away.
What?
You can, I may not answer the phone.
Oh, okay. No,
I can see who's calling on my.
Oh,
I've known our secret
Better
schedule. I
warning.
just,
We've just dropped
Okay.
everything on Mara's desk.
kidding.
okay.
7:05 a.m.
Okay, well, thank you all.
Thanks.
Oh, my God. So
Recuse yourself.
I'm going to recuse myself. I just,
We voted on the door,
Yes, we did.
I hope.
We voted on the door, right?
no, we vote,
You voted on the door. You had 2 votes.
we approve the door. Yes. We approve the door, we to help them carry on.
Right.
Sorry, I thought there was a motion to separate the 2, and then.
That one, that first one, that to separate the 2 included to go forward with the door. Yeah.
So, do you think that we should not have spent time talking about the emergency situation? Okay.
Oh, that's right. I'm like, what's Jenny doing up there?
I'm over here,
And now we're on item number 2.
the
So-
fun one.
Yay.
So do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do. So this is sign permit 22008, and it's for a new hanging sign for an existing retail establishment located at 212 East Ojai Avenue, Unit A, within the arcade, which is the City of Ojai Historic Landmark Number 5. The applicant has applied for a sign permit in order to advertise their business with the intention of matching the colors and character of adjacent businesses within the arcade. There are arcade design guidelines, which include sign standards related to color, size, number of signs, and location. The arcade design guidelines state that colors shall be harmonious with the building and adjacent areas and shall otherwise be compatible with the aesthetic goals of the community. Quote, end quote, which include backgrounds of earth tones, browns, and natural or stained woods. Projecting signs are to be no larger than 15 by 48 inches, and they are to be rigidly suspended, extending no more than 50 feet from the face of the storefront. The bottom of the sign must be exactly 96 inches from the surface of the sidewalk directly under the sign, and the sign is subject to review by the HBC. The proposed sign here is consistent with the size limits and location requirement. The proposed sign is made of a 3-inch thick hardwood. The sign is framed in Benjamin Moore etrusion color painted wood. The sign background is pickled white and is adorned with a Benjamin Moore peony and passion plum colored lettering. The permitted colors for signs in the arcade are earth hues by Benjamin Moore, I'd like to interrupt myself and pass around, I'll start just here to my left, the approved color palette as well as the actual color swabs, chips for this particular sign.
Is this the?
Because when you photograph these colors, they don't come out
Yeah.
well. So I'm sorry, what were you asking?
Is this the 20-year-old color palette, or is this a new one?
No, this is the same color palette, and just for my own sake, if no one else's, the colors in this palette was approved by a body here of HPC members, and these colors are still 100% available.
Oh, okay.
If you go into a Dunn Edwards paint store and say, I want Sable SP262, they will make this color for you. So they're not obsolete.
Okay.
Yes, they upgrade their palettes, but that doesn't mean that the colors are no longer available.
Okay.
The issue last time, Mauro, is they changed the names of them, right? The painter who came in about the doors and the trim.
Dan.
They have
Platcher.
a new color palette that's a different palette. Yes, I guess, and the names have
The names
changed,
are
but
different.
again,
Yeah.
if I were to go in and say, maybe I wouldn't say salt water, but if I were to say DE3115, I'm gonna get this color.
Yeah. I'm just asking because we were talking about having a pre-approved palette for doors and trim so that a painter, like the last situation, wouldn't have to come in front of us if they chose from the pre-approved palette. Like in the
Right,
future, I'd
so
like to see that happen.
Again, we have a pre-approved palette and the colors are still available.
Yeah,
And so, I'm gonna send around.
yeah.
We have here the proposed colors, and again, the copies don't come out the same, so that's why
While we're looking at it, can I ask the applicant a question?
Oh, you do have your
Oh, I didn't, where's
Yes,
mine?
it's in the packet.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
I know, I'm like, ooh, nicely done.
Can
Okay,
we
yeah,
ask
that's
the applicant
fantastic.
a question?
No, I'm not finished yet.
Oh, sorry.
So, sorry.
Sorry.
So the applicant's representative may or may not be here via Zoom. However, we do have the applicant. And the applicant's representative did wonderfully come in and drop off enough color chips for each commissioner. So again, the sign background is pickled white oak and is adorned with a Benjamin Moore peony and passion plum colored lettering, and you have accurate samples in your packets. The permitted colors for signs in the arcade are Earth Hues by Benjamin Moore, which I'm sending around to you. The approved palette, it's available. And this palette, not only is it available here this evening, but it is always available at the Community Development Department. The Benjamin Moore peony color proposed for a portion of the sign lettering is brighter and bolder than the muted colors in our palette. However, as seen in the photo submitted by the applicant, there are other signs in the arcade that contain colors that stand out from the rest of them, kind of a splash of color. And those colors are, as from what I went out and viewed, they are all found in nature. However, they're not part of the approved color palette, but they are from the earth.
So you're saying the peony color isn't approved? The peony and plum
The
color?
peony color is not on that, within the approved colors. However, staff found that it was appropriate for the location among the other signs in the arcade that also have a splash of color that is away from the approved colors, however, is still natural flower colors or something like that. So the commission tonight is to consider if the sign is appropriate and consistent with the guidelines, that the sign will not detrimentally alter, destroy, or adversely affect any exterior architectural feature or any other feature which led to the historic resource to be designated as a landmark. Staff finds that the application is consistent with both the arcade design guidelines and the municipal code, and the proposed sign is visible from the street. It complements the existing signs in the arcade, and the proposed colors fall within a range of earth hues, although not specifically from the Dunn Edwards earth hues palette approved by a previous HPC, or by the HPC, I should say. And we do have the applicant here, if you have questions that I can't answer.
I have a question.
Okay.
You have to go to the mic.
Oh, from the applicant.
I only have
Thank you,
one
Mara.
question. I have one question.
Yes.
Do you love your sign? Do you love the sign?
I love my sign.
Okay, good.
I
That's
love
my
my
question.
sign.
That's the
I think
answer.
it's very, I think it's very simple. I think it is in keeping with other signs on the arcade.
Yeah, and your brand.
I like that it's natural wood, and I didn't realize that that was a paint color on the outside. He stained that wood, you're saying? That outside? That looks like natural wood. And then I like that the colors, the passion plum and the peony, which is basically eggplant, and I mean, I call it eggplant, but the official name is passion plum, and the peony, that they are from the earth, but I agree with Mara, they are not from that palette. And I also like that it doesn't look like every other sign. The third color in my logo packet is a golden, which we have attached here, a mustard golden, and the peony and the passion plum. So there was an idea of using another color that's in, I like that it is my logo, that those are the colors of the logo. That's what the shop's about. That's what it matches on the window. That's what it matches on the ad in the magazines, whatever. But the golden is also in my palette. But when you look to the right, there's 4 signs with wood and this honey color. And that I don't like. You know, I like that it would be different, slightly different in some way than, you know, keeping the idea of, you know, what everyone's doing, but just slightly different. So, yes. Oh, and can I also just mention, Mara, that on this picture, these are not the same colors. Yeah.
Brian has a photograph of the,
Oh, yeah, well, Brian's,
yeah.
When I mentioned photographs, I was talking about the photograph of the other signs.
Yeah.
right,
The existing signs in the arcade,
Right,
and
the
how,
yeah.
how they all have kind of a splash of, yeah,
Right.
that photo there that you have.
That-
I just wanted to say that this
Right, that
image
does
is
not,
brighter.
yeah.
Oh, there
So,
they are.
yeah,
Someone's
and
gotta go.
thank you, Brian. My sign's been patiently waiting in my window.
Yeah, for years.
So can I just make another comment?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Rob White, my sign maker, who's really, you know, a really, really talented artist and sign maker, painter, he's determined that there are colors in the palette that are they're Pantone, they're graphic. And then he's determined that these colors are the coordinating paint colors. So, you know, it still is part of the logo, but these paint colors are ready to update from what Brian's picture is, where the colors are slightly off. But he's determined, you know, the proper colors and has those prepared. So he's prepared tomorrow to paint. Either way, we're going to be painting the letters over. So they will either be the proper colors, like that are on and darker than what's in Brian's picture, You know, or,
Whatever palette the commission approves this evening.
exactly. Anything else?
Okay, questions for the applicant?
That was my question.
There we go.
I've seen that sign sitting in your window for a very long time now. Be nice to see it hanging.
Thank you
Well,
for saying that.
I think that I should make a
It's
motion
patient.
that we
Well,
approve
I
it.
did want to point out that we had company in from Las Vegas. It was fun that they came in late Friday night, and so we took them to a local seafood restaurant. I won't name it, but tried to point out the mountains in the dark and different things. But they were so entranced with the city that they decided to come back Saturday and spent the whole day with us. And so we walked all through the arcade. I went in to see if you were there so we could all say hello, but there was another young lady very nicely told us you weren't, but they did enjoy your display. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just fun to walk around. It was pleasant. The day was beautiful. And, you know, if you're going to introduce Ojai to a visitor from out of town, that was the day to do it. And just wonderful to be there. And again, they were so entranced, they're coming back.
Good.
So
Good.
we'll take them on another tour. Okay.
Cindy, you making a motion?
I would like to make a motion that
Okay.
we approve the sign for Blanche Sylvia.
And I will second it.
Roll call.
Akins,
Oh, I keep looking that way. Hello. Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
and McHatton.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. He's right next door.
He's in this little room.
Yes. I don't know.
That's where all the, I think it's called, commission secretaries now are. Yeah. All the equipment is over there.
I'll just say, just for conversation, I do have regulars that drive up from Ventura for a break. They call it a break, and come and go to the gelato and buy a plant and come visit me. And, you know, it's just really, it's really nice, you know,
It
that
is.
they just, you know, like to walk around in Ojai.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You need a couch in your shop.
I actually do have a couch in the new shop. I know, we need a big fluffy one.
See, I did have one question though on the guidelines. I'm pretty sure the guidelines said that the signs are held by something rigid. And I'm
Oh,
like,
it's chain.
what?
Oh,
I'm like, that chain
well-
ain't rigid.
I wasn't planning on changing anything other than the chain that is already hanging there.
Okay, well, now that you're in your seat, let's, I don't want to be against the Brown Act.
Okay.
So let's, however, I did say that, and I'll go back and look. I know that the signs need to be hung by the existing chains,
Right.
always, but it's possible that it was a rigid sign and not rigidly hung. So I'll check that language.
Okay, yeah, I was just reading through that going, I don't think there's
Yeah,
anything
no,
rigid.
I agree.
All the way
And
up and
I
down.
heard it when I said it out loud, too, that wasn't correct.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
So 2, 3.
So the next item on the agenda is continued because the artists weren't able to make it this evening. So they were going to be hopefully at the next meeting.
Oh.
I'm sorry. You're in charge of the agenda.
Oh, no.
Chair, sorry.
We talked about that
Okay.
less than an hour before the meeting. So will we do the full Ojai Day discussion then next month?
Yes.
That sounds good to me. That's why I left my prison hat at home. I will just tell you that it was fabulous. So if you're watching, fabulous.
It was really fabulous, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So item number 5, Downtown Historic District update. Staff report?
Well, what I'd like to inform the commission of is actually a question that came up, I believe, from the chair, and it's regarding SB 9, State Assembly Bill SB 9.
Yes.
Do you want to hear that, or?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. Look, I'm just laughing because Lucas, I asked him again about that this afternoon, and he did not mention he wouldn't be here. So thank you for taking that on.
Oh, absolutely. Staff has reviewed or has received a couple of questions regarding SB 9 impacts regarding historic districts and historically designated properties. It's nicely written out here. So SB 9 requires cities to ministerially approve 2 residential units on a lot while also permitting a ministerial lot split of a single-family zoned lot, effectively expanding the potential density for a single-family residential lot from 3 to 4 units. However, historic districts and historic designated landmark properties would not, and you can say it different ways, but it means the same thing, would not be subject to SB 9 development or would not be able to take advantage of, depending again how you're looking at it, SB 9 development. They are exempt. So if you're a historic district, then you can't do an SB 9 split. The city of Ojai has 1 historic district, the Taormina district, and it has 28 properties listed as designated historic landmarks, including 12 single-family residences. Anyway, they cannot participate in SB 9, or they are exempt from SB 9. So the historic designation may be seen on one hand as a protected from an increased density, and others may, on the other hand, want more density. But either way you look at it, historic districts are exempt.
Okay,
Clear.
and thank you very much for that, Mar.
Not only are they exempt, though, they also have to be in a single-family zone. And when I just very briefly compared the potential downtown local historic district to, and the zones that are within it, I don't believe there were any single-family residential zones. So, kind of either way,
Yeah, I was thinking
it's
that.
exempt.
Right.
There's nothing on the map.
Yes, yes. So, and the buildings have to be at least 50 years old in order to be within that historic district. So what I did, this originally came to me by a realtor who spent many years on the planning commission, who brought this issue up at the board of realtors meeting. I was not there, but it was relayed to me then by one of the members of the Board of Realtors who I know very well, have worked with over the past month on SB 9. And so we actually, she raised that question during one of the breaks on one of our 4 or 5 hour meetings. And so then we walked up and talked with Matt real quick. There are actually 4 zonings that take place, that can take place. And SB 9 prevents against 3 of those. The only one it doesn't is if there's a density request that's coming in. I don't really understand that. In doing a search, I did see that there were a lot of locations that were actually moving towards putting in place historic districts in order to protect those historic districts because, again, it was SB 9. I will tell you that this came up too in looking at Ventura. Ventura does, and I was talking with somebody, and that person said, well, Ventura doesn't have any historic districts, essentially downtown. I looked in the historic district downtown is the Mission Historic District, and that goes to where Top Hat is. If you know where that street is, that's where the Mission District ends. So if you then go east from that, none of that is within a historic protected district.
But again, it has to be outside of, it would have to be a single-family residential zone in order to participate in SB 9. And that's... Yes, but that can be changed. If it doesn't exist, it can be changed. And so
Again, yes, that is something, but it can be changed. And I've, read about this and looked at it quite a bit. And so Ventura's going through a plan update for themselves, and they are now facing areas that are just outside these areas or within. There are parts of Ventura that are residential, that are intermeshed almost, within a block and a half from the downtown area, or other entryways that are now being pushed to expand the height of their building from 3 stories to 4 to 5 to 6. And again, it was pointed out to me that Ventura does not have the historic districts downtown in the neighborhoods that are close to it, because you can go half a block from downtown and you're in a residential neighborhood. I mean, they surround it. And so, and zonings can be changed. Sometimes money makes that change. And if you're a developer with a lot of money, sometimes they can see that happen. So that was why, and this person who was on the board of realtors said, you need to highlight that. And so I'm following up on that advice. So that's why I asked.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
So is anything on this map a single family? I mean, is there actually a zone where it's a single dwelling?
Single-family zone designation. So there might be properties on that map that have, I don't know, but there might be properties on that map that have a single-family house, but that doesn't mean it's a single-family zone designation.
So it's a zone as opposed to property by property?
It's a zone as opposed to a use.
Okay. Okay.
It's all mixed use.
Yes. Right.
Well, as opposed to a use, meaning the use might be, there might be a single-family residence on the property. However, it's zoned VMU or C1.
Right.
So it's not a single-family zone, it's a single-family use. And also, it's the state historic district also would be exempt from SB 9.
Oh, good.
Huh.
I like that.
Are we sure of that?
Yes,
Good.
Okay, because
So.
someone asked me
I am-
that question. And
I am sure of that.
Okay, great. And
Good.
state arguing with state over what covers what was
So
where my
Taramina's
question was.
exempt.
So
For instance, Taramina, which you described as exempt from SB 9.
Because it's a historic district, not because it's I mean,
Yeah.
it's, right, it's a historic district, but as is but that's a local historic district, but then we have the state historic district that we found out about, that was not long ago.
Yeah.
And that district, which part of it is in the proposed local historic district, it's already exempt from, the state historic district is exempt from SB 9.
It's.
and I don't think we have any. Well, let's see. So there is one property that's about to become, that could become not condos, but rental places, that is within the state historic district. But because the state historic district mainly follows Ojai Avenue, there is very, very little property or that would be made available, or that would be available for people to come in and build on, as opposed to the local downtown historic district that we're proposing. That, in fact, there are single-family homes within the local downtown historic district. I don't know what their zone is, but
Right, but I believe they're not zoned single-family.
yeah, they're sporadic. where
Use
they are.
versus the zone.
Yeah.
Such as the Porch Gallery, which is
Mixed
Correct.
use.
mixed use.
Correct. Village mixed use, yes.
And there's another building like that, the bungalow was originally a house, right?
I have
So-
a question about
Okay.
one of the non-contributing buildings, and I think Gina, maybe you can answer it. It's on Matilaha and Montgomery, where Hip Vegan is on the map.
Matilaha.
There's a little building,
Yeah, where Hip
in
Vegan is.
there's Hip Vegan,
Oh,
funeral parlor, there's
Oh,
a house,
right there,
there's
yeah,
the
the
spa,
funeral
and there's
house.
a landmark. The little house behind Hip, I don't know that
No,
it's for
no,
sale.
actually,
It's a
it's-
1920s board and bat craftsman home.
yes, it was for sale, I think it's
It's
sold.
not for
It-
sale now.
It's sold.
It's sold.
The question is, why is it not a contributing building. It's a 1920s board and back craftsman house. Why is it a non-contributing building? Who determined that?
I think that, we didn't have information on that.
Yeah. We had a hard time finding that address.
Oh, I
Actually-
don't know what the address is, but you know the little house I'm talking about.
I do. I've actually walked all the way around it without trespassing. It has a little open area right to the right of
Yeah.
it.
It's a very cool space, yeah.
It is.
It should
It
be
has.
a contributing building. It's over 50 years old. I mean, it was built in the 20s.
You can't see it from this.
Microphone, please.
Who doesn't have their mic on?
Oh, I think you can now.
Can you see it from the street?
Maybe, yeah.
Wait,
I mean,
Is
Are
that-
you talking
it's
about
like,
the little house?
it's a greenhouse, a little white.
Yeah, it's right. It's right.
It's
on
right along
Montgomery.
the street.
Pretty
right on
much
Montgomery.
the street.
So the parcel, you have the Hip Vegan and you have the Sane Center.
Mhm.
Okay, Hip Vegan on the right if you're facing it, Sane Center on the left. Okay, that used to be property owned by, both of those were on the same parcel, so essentially they got one vote. Then there was that little green house
Yeah.
that was behind it that had its own vote. Well, now, one of those entities on the front part has bought that house behind it, and they've separated it out. So I think they each have a vote. So,
I don't know.
but that's a good question for you. The question is
The
that,
owner of
we had no
Sane
idea
and
what that house
owns
was.
that house.
Yeah,
That's what I was told.
yes.
But to me, it was definitely a contributing building. So then I looked on the map and I don't understand why it wasn't.
Because we knew nothing about that
How
house.
do you determine by the year it was built? Is that how you determined what the contributing buildings were?
That was one of the things that we looked at, when it had to be over 50 years old,
Yeah.
but it also had to contribute to the story of Ojai in some way, and no one could get any information. I mean, we called all the big guns of local historians, and it kept coming up empty.
It's just a little 1920s craftsman house. I mean, I don't know that there's a story behind it.
Neither
It's a
did,
little old
neither
house.
did we.
Yeah.
It took us a while even to find
Yeah,
that house.
Yeah.
And it's right there,
Yeah.
open.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my
yeah,
question,
yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah, one other thing I've told people, because, I've talked to people who are in non-contributing and
Mhm.
said to them that there's always that opportunity to appeal that finding on our part.
Yeah.
Exactly, like if that owner decides that it wants to be contributing so it could get more benefits, being part of the local district, now that we have more information on it,
Yeah.
then that would be something that we could
I
do.
think there's a conversation about a big remodel or tear it down or something like that. And that is why I wondered. But when Darwin was here, he was working on a house that was it was Scott and Sam's house. What street is that on? Ventura?
Oak and
Oak.
Ventura, maybe?
And he wanted
or
to
Oak
add
and
a
Blanche.
second story to it. Before they bought it, he wanted to add a second story. He was denied because it was more than 50 years old, and so it was deemed a historic home, even though it wasn't a landmark or in a historic district. The neighborhood wouldn't allow him to add a second story. So that's what I was wondering about this small house behind Hip, since it's a 1920s craftsman, would they be allowed to tear it down?
Do you know where we're talking about?
It's on Montgomery Street, more right across from Chaparral.
I can't see it in my head, but I know the location.
Do you know where the
and-
Hip Vegan is?
Yeah, no, I know the
Right
location. I
behind
just
it.
can't
Okay.
see the little house in my head, but I do know the location, and if it's
It's green.
Hip Vegan, Sane, and then it's the next one to the left.
Yeah.
So, okay, I see green.
Yeah,
Um,
it's north of Hip
Right.
Vegan.
Yeah.
So
on
I can't
Montgomery.
answer the question at this moment as to whether or not the house could be torn down because it's from the 1920s. If it's not a historic site, if it's not landmarked, then I'm going to say yes. But if you'd
Yeah,
like me, if
yeah.
you'd like me to look into this, I can next week.
I think the
I
thing
would.
with Darwin set a
Okay.
precedent, though, because he wasn't allowed to
It
make
did.
these big changes, so that might have been a precedent about the year, something to do with the historic nature and the year the homes were built, because anything that's over 50 years old can be, have some kind of hope to become historic. depending
How
on
old
the
is the funeral home?
1970s, probably. But I'm talking about, this little house is from the 20s.
Yeah, no, I know the little house. I'm just curious about, you know, if one of those buildings wanted to build a second floor, you know, it's, I mean, it's not the same neighborhood as
Yeah.
Oak and Blanche, I think was where that
It's a
house was.
residential, yeah, and
It's
all the
all
houses were
residential?
all similar.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of conversations about it, but it did come here, you know, as far as being, no, I think the planning commission, but it was about that it was historic. I had couple of big conversations about it. But yeah, I was just, I wondered about that house, why it was a non-contributing building, given the year, and what the future of it would look like. It's just a thought.
Well, I guess it depends on whether it's what the zone is,
Yeah.
because based on the zone, it could be available to be built on.
Well, they wanted,
Yes,
I don't know
SB9.
what they want to do, but, because I didn't really talk to them, but the impression I got was they want to do something major, and it's in the historic district, but it's a non-contributing building. So that's all I know.
Okay.
And it's a very visible site. I mean, it's, you know, right, I mean, I just pass it every day. You know, it's a big-ish lot for there. And, you know, I think that putting something there end to end in that lot would be you know, something extremely visible.
So anything, any development there, I believe it's VMU, would be going to the planning commission, because it's commercial zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though yeah.
So I think there was the family that had the funeral home.
The Clausens.
Clausens. So I think the Clausens had a whole complex. I've been told they had a whole complex. And where that open lot is where the swimming pool was.
Yeah, that swimming pool was right on the street, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think that area that's now a garden where you have
Yeah.
the little signs that say no trespassing,
Right.
it was
They lived in the
They're-
funeral home?
No, they lived in the little,
the apartments, I think.
But like they were
in the
next door
oh, they
to,
lived in the apartments.
like the musical Fun Home, which nobody saw but me.
Well, many
Okay.
people won't
Um,
eat a hip vegan.
Other things on Downtown Historic District. So as you may know, December 1st is now the deadline for getting submittals in. A letter went out on November 2nd from Lucas from Community CDD and to all the parcel owners, notifying them that it was November 2nd. There was a lot of information that was in that too. Kind of just giving people an idea of what's going on and what kind of different things that are going on. And then I suggested the December 1st date that because in talking to Lucas before I did that, it was that it would be cut off December 1st because they were at the time going to then meet on about it on December 13th. That would give staff time to take what information we turned in and get it to staff. Well, at the meeting that just took place long ago, I think there were only 2 people left when I got there finished. They decided to bump the meeting up until, because the 13th is going to be crazy, very crazy, always is, on a change. So the council will hear it in their first meeting in January, on January 10th. And so at that time, then whoever the council is, and they updated the vote count today at 12:44 after it being not updated for 36 hours. So whoever the council is will then hold it or hear, conduct it as a discussion item if they choose to talk about what will take place going forward based on the vote, based on any number of things. Okay. So those are the those are the dates that we have right now. Currently, we are, I know I'm reaching out to all kinds of different people. We have had a request of of a group, and I talked to Lucas and James today, and so Lucas is going to reach out to them.
A request for what?
Mills Act under the
Oh.
potential new plan. And so I was in talking to James and in talking with Lucas, because it's a Mills Act, that's something that's outside our downtown historic district. And so that was something that James said would be okay, and Lucas agreed to go and to talk to this individual and help them understand
Oh.
what it might look like depending on if things change or not. Okay? I was happy to outsource that.
So can you just go over that? So December 13th,
December 1st
December 1st.
is right now the deadline for getting, and I've been putting emails out to people that I've been talking about and giving them updated information, or people that I haven't talked to yet. Usually I try to talk to somebody, get their email address, and then send them information. So I
So
have
they
been
need
updating
to
their information.
submit their vote by December 1st.
They do.
Okay.
They do. And so they have been submitting I'm not sure, they may come into Lucas, or they may come into the desks. Then Brian is getting a copy of those, and Brian is tallying those and verifying that they are who they are.
And then at what date is that presented to the council?
December 10th, or January 10th, I mean.
January 10th.
Yes. It was originally thinking it was going to be December 13th.
Right.
But when we talked to the last meeting then and set the December 1st date, then they decided to go with the January 10th
Okay.
for the new council. Because the 13th, to remind everybody, is when the presentations will be taking place. I've talked to Cindy, and then I've also talked to Nancy Fay, and we'll let Gina know that, Gina, you need to be at the council meeting on December 13th, so,
Okay.
mask up.
Okay.
Mask up.
So, just to recap, this was rushed so this council would have a discussion and decision process since they've been a part of this, but now we are just rolling the dice with a new council. The current council is not going to have the option or the availability to discuss the results of the tally.
The current council, who had originally suggested it, set the meeting time frame for December 13th. That was when there was a November 8th cutoff. Then they were going to talk about it because December 13th is their one and only there are no council meetings during November.
Right.
They're taking, the reason for that is normally they would have had a meeting Tuesday night, but that's the vote. So they always take the vote off. And then they pretty much always take the fourth Tuesday off because that's Thanksgiving weekend. So they're dark during November. So their first meeting was going to be December 13th.
Okay.
That's why it was originally set for that date.
All right, and you and I, at our last ad hoc discussion, we talked about having a Zoom, kind of open-ended Zoom time in case any property owners wanted to come on and had questions. Since, do we still want to try to do something like that to where,
So you and I should talk about that.
okay,
Again, that would be a meeting that only you and I are allowed to be at.
well, we can, or
No.
now,
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying
right,
that, the rules are that I can go with anybody else, but then I can't go back with someone to the
Right,
same place
exactly.
with somebody else.
Would that be a public meeting? I
well,
mean,
what we wanted to do
Can
was,
other people watch the Q&A?
yeah, I mean,
Well,
who
here's
knows
the-
if there even going to be a Q&A? What I wanted to have was an opportunity that we were just on a Zoom call, in from this time to this time, like 5 to 7 on December, not December, sometime in November. So if anyone had any pending questions, if anything was confusing, we were there to answer it.
But I mean, could Cindy and I can't be a part of the meeting, but could we watch the meeting? Is it going to be a public meeting?
Yeah,
Well, and so there is a problem when we're trying to do any public meeting that's associated. Although I went to a public meeting back when we were landmarking the Nordhoff Grammar School that was held at the Art Center. That was a public meeting that was put on by not Councilman Wyrick, but by Bill Wyrick, and not by Councilmember Susan Francina, but by Susan Francina. So two
Citizens.
citizens held a very public meeting at the Art Center and took comments on what to do with on ideas of what to do with for the community, with the Nordhoff Grammar School.
And they just did something similar to that. What was the topic at the Art Center? It was, someone else did something similar to that.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, this was again, two
It was just
citizens
two
that just
citizens,
happened to
yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So I was sitting in the front row, as I always try to do, and watching with interest. And there were the other council members, at least two of the other council members, sitting on the back row.
Oh, I know what it was about. It was just about affordable housing. Because I remember mentioning it to Fred, whether to go. And it was two citizens that put together, and a developer, put together a forum for the public in that space. But it could still be Zoom and public, right? It doesn't have to actually be in a space?
Yeah,
Or
the
are we
reason,
required to offer the public a space?
we were just concerned about maybe out-of-town owners, people who are hard to get a hold of, or people who feel like they can't reach us to
Does
have a
Zoom count
designated
as a
time.
public space?
I think so.
Okay,
So,
It's
so,
in-
my question.
Yeah.
so I'll check into all of this. Again, a meeting of this type has taken place. It was not, the one that was at the Art Center was not, it was publicly. It was done by two individuals that just happened to be on the council, attended by two other individuals not involved that never said anything during it, but were on the council. And I waited, how about that, huh? I waited to see what would happen, and nothing did. So I think, so I will talk next week and see if I can't get some guidelines on that.
Right.
Let's see.
Okay, so just as far as the calendar goes, so December 13th and January 10th are both dates that we need to add to our calendar, but they're not our meeting dates.
December.
December
December
13th.
13th and January 10th,
December 13th is for the awards that are
Right.
going out. And
and January 10th
and
is,
then January 10th is for the January 10th is to determine whether the council, what the council wants to do, whoever they are at that time.
Mhm.
and this will be the new council.
Correct.
Yes. It'll be a council.
Whoever that will be.
So the other thing is, what?
Is that your tally?
Yeah, it is.
Let's not,
My tally.
Ryan has 1203 votes.
Wait, let me see. Oh, shoot.
And so, yeah, that was my tally this afternoon. I also have a tally at 1:44 Wednesday morning, because I was watching as they were updating. And then the tally, so 1:44 Wednesday morning, and then the next tally didn't come until 1:44, essentially 1:44 this afternoon. So,
wow.
Oh,
Hmm.
so it has been, it's been crazy.
Yep.
where are they doing all of this?
Down in Ventura. Let's see, so other things that are going on. Gina, are you still working on a one-pager to go to business owners?
I sent that to you a few days ago.
Did you? I didn't see it.
Okay,
I'll
I'll send
look
it to you
for
when
it.
I get back.
We should have Mr. Fleming, something, have.
So I met with Jamie Fleming 3 weeks ago at Joe's Coffee. Joe's, what is it?
Java and Joe's?
Java and Joe's? Yes. I get not a coffee drinker. I went to the wrong place. I'm probably the only person in town that doesn't know where Java and Joe's is. So anyway, so I did talk to Jamie. Jamie is ready to help us in any way we can. And so that's why Gina was working on kind of a one-pager that we could,
Okay,
he would be
And he
happy to
would-
pass out to the business owners.
excellent, that's good. That's the right path.
So So, you know, things are taking place. We don't have a meeting until after the January 1st date, and I don't think we have a meeting until after the January 10th meeting. Or,
Do we have a December meeting?
We have a December meeting, isn't it the
8th.
the 8th?
It's my mom's birthday. Yes, and we're gonna talk about the Ojai Day that time, and maybe
Right.
something else, but nothing that we know of at the moment.
Right, we don't have anything else on the agenda at this time.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay,
Is there anything that we want to ask? I mean, are we allowed to ask for something on the agenda?
Sure.
I mean, I don't have anything, I'm just curious.
Think of something.
I mean, if that's our last meeting in December, and it's also before the December 13th and Jan 10th, I mean, I just didn't know if there was something in regards to this project.
Well, it will be on the agenda, it always is, to have a discussion about the downtown historic
It's always
district.
right.
Oh, the Ojai Day recap is on it, right?
And the historic district, local downtown district is
Yeah.
always on the agenda.
Oh, it's always on it,
Holiday
okay.
It's a lightweight holiday agenda.
okay, so, let's see, staff report.
And we're having a Christmas party.
Yeah.
Oh, we
let's
are.
do it.
Anything more than the Christmas party?
The Commissioner Appreciation Dinner, quote unquote, Christmas party.
Oh, that's, it's not the 4th? I'm not sure, you're talking about having a Christmas party here.
No, I'm
But
joking.
you were joking, and now you're talking about a commissioner's dinner.
Commissioners dinner.
Yeah, no,
Okay. So
I don't need anything else on my calendar, thank you.
I don't have anything to say about the commissioner's dinner.
Okay, well, they're planning on a commissioner's
Right, but
something.
it's not on our agenda, so I can't really speak to it.
Yeah,
Oh,
Was it
okay.
Agave Maria last year and then it got canceled?
got
for-
canceled,
remember?
yes.
Sad.
Okay, anything else? Do we have
don't give me anything
I,
else.
I didn't see anything on the upcoming agenda, so we just have the
Oh.
Ojai Day debrief.
Right, and that wasn't on the agenda. Because we thought it was going to be this evening. It was kind of a late hit, so that's why it's not on the agenda, but it is for the next meeting. Or it will be on the next meeting.
I will tell you that right now, so there are 56 parcel votes. Right now, best of my knowledge is there are 35 that have voted so far. So there's still 20 people that haven't indicated any preference.
Oh, 20 people left.
There's only 20 people left.
That haven't indicated, haven't sent in their recommendation so far. So,
I think that's impressive, that,
More than half have voted?
yes.
Yeah.
I think it's impressive that there's only 20 people left.
I do want to
That was-
compliment Vice Chair Convery.
Vice Chair Convery has hit the streets.
Her somehow her reaching out and talking to people is blowing my timeframes away, so
Cindy has a way.
she does. Thank goodness.
Getting
Okay,
there.
anything else we need to bring up? Anything else we need to bring up?
Staff does not have anything else?
Okay, anything, commissioners?
Not for me.
Okay, 7:17. Y'all done there, Brian? Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Just seeing if you're still awake.
Where are you, Brian?
Okay, we're done.
Thank you.